Hello, everyone. My name is Ruth Olujobi, and I'm so excited to be back in the studio after a few months being off. Oh my goodness, this is so exciting, and I just missed podcasting so much. I could not even describe how much I miss being in this place. Actually, no, I've been in this place a while because I've been recording episodes with 3 of my friends, but not for Blooming Daily. So I've missed recording for Blooming Daily because it's something that gives me so much joy and something that just fills me with a lot of, happiness and purpose. So
yeah,
I have missed recording, and I'm so excited to be back in the studio. Thank you all for, your comments on the launch of our website. It was so heartwarming to see so many people say, wow, your website looks so good. It made me so happy. So many comments from different people, and yes, this is me again saying we have launched our very first website, and I am really excited because it's a project we're working on for over a year and a half. A lot of time and resources went into it, so I'm really excited that we got to launch at the end of October, and now we can upload our episodes there. You can see pictures from community members around the globe. You can read more about the work we do and our mission, vision, and even the things we want to continue doing in the future. So head over to bloomingdaily.org if you haven't already, and check out our website. Send us an email, subscribe to our upcoming newsletter, and just get excited for what is to come. This is the beginning of a new season 4, which is super exciting because I'm also in my final year at Bowdoin. So this is my 4th year at Bowdoin, and this will be our 4th season and final season at Bowdoin. I will continue after leaving Bowdoin, but this will be the final one I do. Final fresh season at Bowdoin, and this is coming with a lot of mixed feelings because wow, I can't believe we started Blooming Daily my first year, and now it has come really far, so I'm really excited about that. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce today's episode. We are going to be speaking about rest, recovery, and restarting after stopping for a while. Not even just restarting the episode, but restarting things in general. And with me in the studio is Lanisha.
Hey guys, it's your girl Lanisha.
Oh my goodness, welcome, and thank you for joining me in the studio today, and
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, and for being our very first guest in season 4. How are you doing today, Lanisha?
I'm doing pretty good.
I'm really glad to hear that. And it's also end of November. We're recording a week before our Thanksgiving break. So
really a couple of days.
Yes, a couple of days. And so it's the grind season before break comes. So I wish you could see Lanisha say she's shaking her head vigorously.
Yes. I'm like, oh no.
Oh my goodness. But so I am just waiting for the weekend to come so I can breathe a little lighter, because right now I'm in it. So
yes.
But
so many people have so many assignments due right before everything, and I'm just like, oh
yeah. So but that's why I'm also glad that we can take some time to be in the studio, because it's just a fun other thing to the day and a way to switch things up. So yes, I'm going to start by just really asking about how you've been. I know you're doing good now, but how you've been in general, how things have been, because I know you told me earlier that you took a medical leave from campus, and so all of that, even I've also tried to just slow things down a bit in terms of recording and other extracurriculars I've been doing because of how demanding my academics have been for this final year. So I just want to really know, how are you doing, Lanisha?
I guess you could say I'm kind of just in a growth period right now. Like I'm not really stagnant. It's just like it's non-linear. It's like I'm always growing and changing, and because I can't say that I'm fine, I realize, because that just wouldn't be honest. But I guess at certain points of this semester, I've been a bit overwhelmed, you know, just getting back into the swing of things. And then, you know, like Bowdoin has this it's really big on like hustle culture or like the grind and stuff like that. And so it's kind of just like, especially coming back from a medical leave, that's very like the antithesis of like my being right now. Like you're going against me right now.
Yes.
Because I can't just hop back into this grind culture, which is based off of you like neglecting yourself in a sense. And so I guess I've just kind of been like trying to find my place within the Bowdoin atmosphere now that I am taking care of myself. Where does Bowdoin and assignments and, you know, higher academia fall in line with self-care? So that's kind of just like how I've been.
That's very real, and I can definitely relate to thinking of, okay, how can I continue doing the work I'm required to do as a student while taking care of myself? You know, I can't put aside my academics, but I can also put aside taking care of myself.
Yeah.
So I've been asking, how can I make sure I'm doing the work I need to do, because it's a lot of work, especially this period, this past few weeks. Oh my goodness, I'm telling you.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one. It's just been assignment after assignment after assignment.
One thing is due, the other thing is due, and I've really been thinking, and towards, I think in October, I'm going to pick one thing. I'm going to pick, let's say, exercising. I think I wasn't exercising in October. I can't really remember because I wasn't keeping tab, but I had a period in the semester a few weeks back, like many weeks, where I just was so busy. I mean, I'm still very busy now, but where I was so busy that I wasn't really taking care of myself the way I wanted to, in terms of, let's say, working out and just resting and sleeping well. And so this past 2 weeks, I've been trying to do that more. I went to the gym yesterday, for example. I had work to do, but then I said, I don't think going to the gym 30 minutes would drastically change how much I have to do. Even though, okay, kind of. But I was like, I needed to just exercise. I needed that my body to stretch, and I needed my body to do some work. And because I knew that working out would make me feel better, and it would be an investment into the work I would do that night. So I totally hear you, Lunisha, because the struggle is so real.
Yeah, and I think that kind of just like another thing that a lot of people don't talk about is like there's like this feeling, and I'm not sure if you've experienced it, but there's this feeling of kind of like guilt when you're taking care of yourself in a way, because you're like, oh, I'm not really being productive towards like my studies and stuff like that. And that's the whole entire reason I'm here, you know, but your studies serve you is what like, and I think that's something that I've also just been realizing is that your studies and the work that you do, it serves you. You wouldn't have, you know, fought so hard to get into the school just so that you could only focus on studies and just completely neglect yourself. You know, like your studies are here to serve you. Your paperwork and the stuff that you do here at school is meant to serve you. And I think that that's kind of just like something I've also been kind of learning, or kind of rather unlearning, is like that sense of guilt and shame that surrounds like rest and recovery, because like you lay down and then you're like, oh, I didn't do anything today. And then like now it's like the clock is ticking down and suddenly you're like trying to get all these different things like done. Or maybe you just feel really sad or like upset about the fact that you didn't get as much as you believe that you should have got done.
Oh, it happens to me a lot. For example, during fall break, so we had a 2-day fall break for people, for our non-Bowdoin listeners, because we have a lot of non-Bowdoin listeners. So during those 2 days, the first day, I didn't do a lot of work. I spent a good chunk of it. I slept in because I was so tired. And by sleeping in, probably like 2 more hours. But it felt like such a big deal to me. I was like, oh my God, I slept like 2 extra hours. And then I did some work by just sending only a few emails. And I spent a big chunk of my afternoon/evening cooking with a few first years and sophomores on campus. And I absolutely loved it. But before I did the cooking, I was feeling a bit, like you said, guilty about not having done much work that day.
Yeah.
But I had to remind myself, Ruth, you know you're so tired. You know you've not been sleeping well, and this was a chance for you to just sleep some more and rest. But I was feeling like I should have done a lot more work, sent a lot of emails, caught up on a lot of work. Just one day of break, and I was planning to jam pack it with so much
You were
work.
planning to lift Mount Everest.
No, really. For real. So, I mean, the next day I did go to my lab, and I spent almost all day in lab. But I was glad that I got to rest for a bit that Monday. So I totally understand.
Yeah.
And it happens because we're very geared towards getting work done and being productive.
Yes. And like, especially like listening to you talk about that, it also kind of just made me think about like how intersectionality kind of plays a part in like our whole entire notion of, oh, well, everybody has 24 hours. You know, like you always hear that. But in reality, not everybody does have the same amount of 24 hours. Like, depending on your circumstance, you know, you have to take public transportation, and that takes a long time. Some place that you were supposed to get to like 45 minutes ago, now it's 2 hours past because, you know, the bus makes so many stops. Or if you were, you know, like, I know you're an international student.
Yes.
And I know a lot of international students work. Like, you have to be able to pay for things that you need and just, like, take care of yourself. You don't have the same amount, 24 hours as, say, for example, another student that comes from a highly educated background, parents who can literally afford everything. You know, they have that privilege of basically having a full 24 hours versus other people, you know. And I think that that's kind of just like also like recognizing that also is like another way of like doing a form of self-care for myself. And that's also just something I want to tell you is like, you know, give yourself grace. You know, if you're not going to do it, who else is, girl? Like, and not only that, but you're on top of your studies. Like, not only that, but just like, you're an amazing human being. You're an amazing person. And it's kind of just like, you know, sometimes we kind of get lost in the sauce and we kind of forget that, you know, we that girl, you know, and it's okay. And I'm not saying that you got to always be happy and stuff like that, because I don't believe in positive toxicity or toxic positivity. I did it backwards, but, but, you know, I think that you're allowed to have your moments and not beat yourself up for it. And I think about like how work ethic in a way is kind of just so, like, hustle culture and like grind culture, it doesn't allow for humanity in a sense. In the sense of where grind culture makes a lot of assumptions of the person. It makes the assumption that they're able-bodied. It makes the assumption that they'll never get sick. It makes the assumption that emotions don't come into play and that you just work. It makes the assumption that, you know, monetary gain is all there is, you know? And it's like, if you say that's not actually what I'm looking for and stuff like that, then you're kind of treated as like somebody who just isn't really wanting to do the work or things like that, or that you're just hating. But it's like, you know, what type of life is it if you're working like 12 hours out of a 24-hour day? Half of your day is gone to work, you know? And I don't personally believe that I was put on this earth to work. I don't believe that I was put on this earth to be a workhorse or a work machine. You know, I don't believe other people were put on this earth for that reason either. And I think that in that way, it denies humanity because it's all about results, and you completely disregard the process of that results. And like, you disregard the process that it takes to get to those results. Does that make sense?
That's very interesting. I think I am curious about, I would love to hear more about the point you you made about not being put on this earth to work?
I think like it took me like a while to kind of get into that mindset, especially because like, and this is like going back to my childhood, but I was like a straight A student, like in school and stuff like that. So I was always about results, and I was always about basically, oh, I got to turn this in on time. I got to make sure that I'm like 2 weeks ahead of everybody. Like I'm in constant competition, stuff like that. And then like medical break happened, and, I just wasn't able to do any of that anymore. You know, mental health happened, and I just wasn't able to I wasn't able to live up to that expectation, that impossible standard that I had set for myself. And the process of kind of just like, you know, grieving over like my former self and like a straight A student and stuff like that, I actually was gaining a lot more, and I've gained a lot more, and I've understand myself a lot more. And I realized, what type of life was I living before? You know, I wasn't necessarily happy in those moments. In fact, I was mostly stressed out and anxious. I wasn't necessarily taking care of myself. And I realized, especially just becoming disabled and stuff like that, and having like autoimmune diseases now, that if I don't take care of myself, then who else will? Especially because like I've had like really bad experiences, both in my family, outside of my family, when it comes to like my disability, like even inside of the medical field. And that's when I realized like I have to completely and utterly redefine my mantra for life. You know, I have to completely redefine how I want to go about walking in a space that was not designed for me. How do I live in a sense? Like, how do I live outside of a capitalist ideology? You know? How do I live outside of like a workhorse ideology? And that's kind of like where I came to that thing of, I wasn't put on earth to work, you know, like that's not me. Because I tried to act like that was me. I tried to uphold those standards that were just never meant to be met. And what did I get? You know, I got seizures.
Wow.
So like, you know, like I was outside tweaking on the ground, you know, like,
goodness.
So it's like, it's sorry, but it's like, sorry, I'm like laughing, guys, not crying, but yeah. And so it's like in those moments, and then that moment, and now that I've just like, I'm past that, you know, I think back to it and I'm just like, what did my pride get me? It got me nowhere. It got me hurt. And I think that that's also like a good barrier for a lot of people when it comes to self-care. I know that that was mine, is that there was a lot of pride in my results and my achievements.
Yes.
And I thought that they made me who I was. And so like when I wasn't meeting those expectations, when I wasn't getting those results, when I was no longer, you know, straight A student, I thought I just completely let myself down. And I thought like little Lanisha was like so sad of me, like, and I felt like I let her down. But now I'm realizing that in fact, I'm making her even more happy, and I'm making myself even more happy because I'm finally actually acknowledging Lanisha, like me as a human being, you know, instead of focusing on the result all the time. I'm actually thinking about the process. And, you know, and I think having that mindset also changed like my moral standards, especially like in terms of kind of like what I expect out of others, but also what I expect out of myself. If I'm not going to put myself through like this harmful, I guess you could say like structure, like process to get a desired result, then I won't expect that out of other people either. And not only that, but it also allowed for me to just be more like compassionate towards other people, because my experience kind of just showed me that you don't know what people are going through.
Yes.
And then not only that, but in that moment, when I was having all those problems and stuff like that, what I really wanted somebody to tell me in that moment was that it was, okay, it's like a little bit corny, but like that it was going to be okay, but also that it's okay to not be okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay to not have everything figured out. Because I think another thing about it is when it comes to focusing on the results so much, you always pressure yourself to always have things figured out. You're so hyper focused on the future that you can't even fully process the present.
Yes.
Like you can't actually live in the moment because you're constantly thinking about this deadline. You're constantly thinking about that deadline. Oh shoot, I got an essay. Like I was going to say SAT. That's how you know I went back to high school. But, you know, shoot, I got an exam and stuff like that. And, you know, kind of just like changing that for me has been something that's been like really beneficial just for me emotionally, mentally, physically, and even spiritually too. And also just like in terms of like relationships, like having to constantly remind my friends that no, like you're a human being, go to sleep. You know, you are not Superwoman.
No.
You're not Batman.
No.
Take that butt to sleep. You know?
Yeah. Wow, you said so many things that are making me think about a lot of other things.
Yes.
Because I totally understand how harmful it can be when we start becoming only results oriented, even to the detriment of ourselves and others. When we maybe don't even care about what happens in the process so far we get a result. And the reality is that in certain seasons of our lives, we might have to really lock in and do certain things. We might say, oh, okay, it's just this 1 week. If I can really lock in this 1 week. Yes, that happens. I do it all the time. So I'm not going to come on the podcast to say, oh no, you're never going to have to do that, because that would just flat out be a lie, because I do it myself. I have many periods in the semester where I am not sleeping well. I'm not going to the gym because I'm telling myself, okay, I just need to really put my very best in this week. But that should not be a constant thing. That should not be how every day is.
That should not be the standard.
I should not be losing sleep every single day. And I should not be not working out or doing all this every single day because I'm trying to get a certain result. Of course, again, like I said before, it happens. It happens to all of us. If you're in school, if you're at work, you might have this very big project you're trying to pitch to maybe a boss, to a partner. We all have those seasons where we're staying up and we really, and again, we weren't saying anything about how results are bad. No, we want results. How else do we know
that we're making progress?
Yes, if they are in some form of results. So, and results differ for different people. Results aren't a bad thing in themselves. It's when we're striving for certain results at the detriment of ourselves and things around us.
Yes.
So you said a lot of things that made me think about how systems and structures are built. And yes, thank you for sharing all of that, and for also sharing your personal experiences with, you know, your medical leave. I it's funny, my immediate elder brother likes to call me out when I don't sleep, or like 2 days ago when I was up at 2 a.m. texting him, and he said, why you always awake so late? And I said, work, man, I'm doing work. And he said, take your own advice, unless I'm going to drag you. And I was like, bruh. But he had a point, because he tells me that all the time when I'm up incessantly at night doing work and I'm complaining to him about how I'm having headaches. He reminds me that you're staying up very late and you're not getting good sleep, and you can tell that it's giving you headaches and all of that. So yes, I think making sure that we're not constantly striving for results at the detriment of other things is really important. So thank you again, Nisha, for sharing. That was just very touching. So
thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And so now we're going to go to something I was thinking about, you know, why we've spoken about our personal experiences, but now I was even thinking, I was thinking, let's even mention some benefits of rest and recovery, because there are many of them, and I'm not going to dwell on some of the physical ones, like, although I don't know if a lot of people know, but even resting helps with your immune system support.
It does.
And I think that's an important thing, because science has shown that, research, has shown that resting reduces inflammation in your body and supports the production of immune cells. So this is really important, because it means that if you're not resting well, your body isn't even strong enough to fight sicknesses when they come. And so when we are not resting, we're not setting up ourselves to be able to deal with, when the flu comes and when all of these things come. The same, and this connects with sleeping also, which is why sleeping is so important, and which is why when I don't sleep well for a long period of time, I can feel it.
Yes, and it makes you so irritable. Like,
it does.
It low-key kind of makes you a miserable person to be around. Like, I don't be having no type of energy. Like, if I didn't get no sleep the prior night, you're gonna know.
Yeah.
You're gonna know.
It's like, what do you want? Oh my, yeah. So.
Yeah, and that's why, like, when I don't get sleep, I try not to be around people. Just to kind of, like, because without sleep, I feel like I'm like a bit of a different person. Like, I'm a bit more unhinged. And it's to the point where I'm just like, I'm protecting my peace and others.
Yes.
But I'm saying to myself right now.
I feel that. No, I feel that so much. So resting does help with your immune system. It also helps with muscle recovery. We don't realize sometimes, but when I think many of us might know this when we work out, that people say, oh yes, when you work out, make sure you're sleeping well.
I always hear that.
It's really important, because your body does a lot of healing while you sleep. So, and during rest, your muscle repair themselves, and when you're sleeping, your body can increase the growth hormone and help you repair your tissue. So sleeping really does help with muscle recovery. Rest also helps you with improving your energy levels in general. That's just something, just like you spoke about, when you haven't slept,
it's just like,
you're just like, oh my god. Yeah, so oh my goodness, on Tuesday I slept very little, because again, it was the same day my brother texted me, and I had to wake up because I had an 8:30 a.m. class, so I had to wake up early. And in that class, I'm telling you, I probably heard 20% of what my professor said, because I was so tired and my energy level was so low. It was like,
and you don't retain anything.
I'm telling you, I can barely remember what happened in that class. I'm so serious, because I was so tired. I kept thinking about how tired I was in the class.
Yeah, and it just like, it's like a little feedback loop. It's like the more tired you realize you are, the more tired you get. And you're just like,
So I say this, and every time I record this podcast, I always try to remember that I'm also someone who needs these things. I'm not coming from a place of, I know how to do all these things well, because I don't.
Exactly.
I struggle with many of these things as well. And of course, I'm trying to make sure I'm taking care of myself. I'm trying to make sure that I am practicing what I preach, but I'm not perfect. And
yes,
I will never be perfect, because that's an illusion. Perfection.
Yes.
So that's something I wanted to mention. And again, going back to the importance of rest, these are really important things. And then, like you said, you spoke about not being able to retain things, and this links really nicely to the mental benefits, like cognitive function. I'm telling you, when you don't sleep, that paper you're trying to work on, you're just gonna be like, how did you even write an intro again?
Actually, it's gonna take you back to second grade.
No, really. And it's just something that happens because your brain needs sleep for consolidating memories, and your brain needs sleep for doing problem solving skills. So this is really important, and your brain does a lot of detoxification while you sleep. Yes, it's because it's consolidating memories, is sorting things out, the things you don't need to remember.
So it's like a lot of organization.
Yes, the things you don't need to remember, it's putting them aside. But when you're not sleeping well, your brain can't really do that. So that's why when you don't sleep well for a long period of time, you might feel like you're all over the place. So rest is really important for this. And again, we're not just even speaking about sleep, we're speaking about rest in general. That's why it's important. That's why companies have leaves, schools have breaks, and
yes, actually,
I really hope that, you know, if you're working, you can actually try to use those leaves. I know sometimes it might feel as though you don't want to use that leave because you don't want to appear, oh my goodness, I'm taking the leave, but I'm telling you, those things are there because you're supposed to take them.
Yes.
And I know sometimes they can feel like they're insufficient, but I've read how sometimes people don't even want to take their leaves because they're worried about how it's going to come off if they're on a leave.
Yes. And I think that that's also just like one thing that I also kind of low-key wanted to talk about is just how a lot of people don't even recognize that personal leaves are an option from college. It doesn't have to be medical. You can take a personal leave, and sometimes like personal leaves aren't even done because of like medical reasons. It's just like, oh, I just want some time to kind of just figure out what it is that I actually really want to do, you know, or spend some time inside of my career field, you know. And I think that that's something that a lot of people need to realize is an option for you. It's an option to leave. It's an option to take a break. Something that I wish a lot of people knew is that, you know, these leaves and these resources, they're available to you because some people like had to go through some things to kind of just like recognize that actually, you know, the students do need a leave. The students do need, you know, they do need these things in order for them to basically actually do their best in school. And if higher academia, an institution that is known for its like how rigorous it is, can admit and have leaves during the school year for students, then that shows that leaves are an unnecessary thing. Self-care is not a privilege, it's a right. Self-care is self-preservation. It's taking care of yourself. That's not something that you just do like at the end of the day. Well, it's something that you do at the end of the day sometimes. But my point is, it's not something that you can just basically be like, oh, I'll wait for the right time to do it. You have to find ways and methods of taking care of yourself within your given circumstances.
You said really interesting things, and I want to go off something you said that actually made me think that, oh, I think there's a flip side to this. You said something interesting about self-care is not privilege, and then I was thinking of people who for them self-care is a privilege, you know. People who are working, let's say, 2 jobs because they're in school and they have to pay their own tuition, you know. People who are working 2 jobs because they have a family and they have kids. People who are, and so this episode really is not enough to touch on all of these circumstances, but I was really thinking about how you mentioned it's all right, and it just made me realize that no, it might not be that way for everyone. You know, the reality about people who are in places where there is conflict and they really cannot take care of themselves, you know. So there's just so much that this conversation is making me think of, because in an ideal world we want everyone to be able to take care of themselves and all of that, but that's not the reality, and it's really heartbreaking because there are people who just almost need to keep working for their daily meals, need to keep working to make sure they can stay in school. And going back to what you said about how the institutions have leaves, it made me think of, I mean, because I didn't go to university at all in Nigeria, I don't know what the system is. And maybe to our listeners who are in schools in Nigeria, please let us know. I want to know what the system in different schools are concerning taking leaves, because I know Bowdoin allows medical leaves. I'm sure many other schools in the US allow medical leaves and personal leaves, but I wonder if this is something that schools across the world do, you know,
something that's universal.
Because what if there are schools that, if you're about to take a leave, they tell you, well, you're going to have to fail the semester if you take a leave, you know? That's something I don't really know, and something I'm now really curious about. Because if there are schools that don't allow students to take leaves, then that means there's an external pressure on the students to stay in school even when they feel like they need it. So the fact that taking a leave might not be an option for many, many, many students across the world is something that I'm thinking about now. And the fact that maybe for many other people being able to take a leave, or people in Western countries or people in different countries being able to take leaves from school and all of that might then become a privilege. So it's just something I was thinking about. But like you said, the crux of it is that being able to take these breaks when things are going on, or when we feel when we know that we need it, or whether it's because we're sick and all of that, there are personal family matters happening, there's loss and all of that. There's a plethora of reasons people might need to step back. Understanding that can be helpful it is a necessary thing to know. And then, like we mentioned, there's physical benefits. Even when we think of athletes, imagine if you have an injury on the field and you don't rest, your body is not going to heal
at all.
You're just going to go back on the court and injure yourself even more.
Yes.
And then who knows, it might get really worse and you're not going to be able to play again. So there are physical benefits, but there are also mental benefits, really making sure that you're, for example, stress. When you're under a lot of stress, it increases your cortisol levels, and taking breaks and help reduce those cortisol levels and help you feel more motivated to continue your work, more motivated to get back into the things you love. Because sometimes when we get burned out, we even lose the spark for the things that you actually love. You might love going to class, you might love your job so much, but then you become burned out and you don't even want to do all those things. So taking breaks have so many important, and even for our emotions and hormones and there's just so many reasons. And I don't want to fill the podcast with speaking about these things because they're things that are honestly you can find online, but I just wanted to speak on some of them as a way to prompt everyone listening to search more on these and think of how taking breaks can be incorporated into our daily lives. And so those are things that definitely we need to be thinking about at different points in our lives. It's not something you can only just think about once and stop thinking about, because as we grow and evolve, we need to keep on thinking about these things. And so I want us to end the podcast with practical tips for restarting after we've taken a break for something. So now you've taken a break from working out, you've taken a break from school, and now you're coming back to school. You've taken a break from work, you went on, or if maybe you just went on leave, or you went for a summer vacation, or you went on a school break. It might not even be that you took a break for yourself. It might also just be that you were given a break by school and your institution and all of that. So I want us to spend a few minutes speaking about practical tips for restarting and getting back in the swing of things. And the first thing I want to mention, and I would love to hear your thoughts on, is gradual progress.
Is what?
Gradual progress.
Gradual.
Taking things one step at a time, easing yourself into it. I know, again, this can vary for different people, especially depending on where you work, where you go to school, where you live. But I want to hear how that has been for you coming back on campus, and how you think you've been able to ease in, or not, but how you think you've been able to come back into the rhythm of things.
I think coming back, I wasn't really eased into it. I was just thrown into the mix of everything.
Yeah, that happens.
And I will say this, however, even though I was thrown into the mix of everything, I made it gradual for myself. I believe that, when it comes to coming back and restarting things, understand and get used to the fact that you're not the same person as you were before. So you might have been able to, say, for example, let's take typing, right? you used to type at like 100 words per minute, right? I was going to say per hour. That was going to be crazy. But but you used to be able to type that fast, right? But then you took a break from it because, say, for example, like you injured your wrist. So you had to stop typing for a while. You come back to it. You can't be expecting to be typing 100 words per minute. That's not how it works, you know? And that's it. Just like, if you try to force yourself to be as who you were in the past, not only do you deny yourself progress, not only do you basically try to like deny yourself any type of growth that you had, but also you shame yourself in that sense. And you kind of like, you make yourself feel even more worse and like bad about the guilt of not being able to meet an expectation that you used to be able to do things. Things are different now, you know, like, and that is okay. So I guess being okay with being different than who you were from like your past is one step that I took, basically, of kind of just like making the process gradual for me. Because I'm not going to lie, sometimes, you know, like you have to basically step into a system that's just going to throw you to the wolves. But you got to be able to also be the person that will say, okay, I might be out here with these wolves, but these wolves are also out here with me. You get what I'm saying? You know, like you have to also basically be the type of person, you have to also make a system in which you are able to survive and thrive, really, not just survive, because surviving and thriving are two different things. And it took me such a long time to actually really learn that. And one of my practical tips, I guess you could say something that you can actually implement, is when you start to feel yourself getting overwhelmed, and when you start to feel yourself feeling sad over everything, and you're getting frustrated, really it's frustration that can come up a lot of times. I like to think about everything that I've been through. And I like to also think about, okay, what if I wasn't Lanisha, but instead, what if I was Ruth? And I was going through all this. What would I tell Ruth? And I would tell you that it's okay. It's okay for you to not be the best at something. It's okay for you to literally have to relearn things. It's okay for you to take a different path than from who you were before. And that's all right. And I think saying that, and then just reminding myself that, no, like, this is Lanisha that I'm talking to. If I can extend that compassion to you, then I should be able to extend that compassion to me. And I think that that's something that I hope our viewers, I hope our listeners will kind of like take away, is making sure that you're giving yourself grace, because you're not a superhero. This is not a Marvel movie or a comic. You're a human being, and that's okay. It's okay to be human. It's okay to not be who you were in the past.
You said something, it's okay to be human, and I thought we are human. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing we can be, human.
Exactly.
So yes, that's who we are. We need rest, and of course we will keep striving. It's amazing, and in fact necessary, to be striving to be the best we can be, because that's an important thing. You know, we will all want to, I mean, I'm not going to say we all want to do great things, because I don't want to assume for everyone listening to this, but I know that many people have different wants in life. But sometimes we're in different periods where we can't meet that, and we just have to recognize that and say, okay, how can I get to the place I want to be gradually, or how can I make sure that I'm taking care of myself while I'm striving to be the best I can be, or while I'm still reaching for beyond the stars. So yeah. So another thing I have here, which is really connected to something you said about systems, is having a good support system.
Yes.
because that's so important. And I just want to hear a bit about how that has been for you, if you feel like you have a good support system on campus, or how you've crafted a support system for yourself. Because honestly, leaning on your friends, family, or, you know, not everyone has family members they can lean on. That's the truth. Not everyone has friends in their immediate surroundings, in their work, that they can lean on. But having a form of community is really important, and I want to hear your thoughts on that, Lanisha.
So I think, especially for anybody that doesn't have family or friends, is the first thing that I would say is kind of just like that one, that's not your fault. Like, it's okay. And two, I would say that one thing I feel like will help you build community is getting out and going to places of where, like, it's like a similar, like, thing of expertise for you, or a similar environment from, like, different people. You know, they're different people, but they have similar interests to you. You know, like, I forgot what's it's called, but there is, like, a website where it talks about events that's taking place in your city that are free for you to go to. And I definitely would recommend going.
I feel like even just Googling now, you can just say events in where you are, Lagos.
Yeah, for free.
Yes.
And you could go there, and you could. And I think that another thing is, in that process, you have to get used to awkwardness. Okay, you can't try to rush relationship building. It's gonna be awkward in the first couple minutes when you're talking to somebody. I'm sorry, it's just the facts. You know.
And sometimes you might click, but many times you might not click immediately.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's another thing, is I feel like we're so used to, like, seeing, like, you know, love stories or, like, the best friends inside of the movies, that we, like, try to rush these relationships. But it's like, no, these relationships are built off of a foundation of little small actions that build up to trust, that build up to mutual respect. And I think that that is something that a lot of people should, you know, do. And that's, you know, one thing that I would like to caution people about is, like, don't be so, how do I say this? Don't be so scared of being alone that you find yourself in an unfortunate position, you know? Because everything that grand ain't your friend. You know, like, I remember that was in the Megan Thee Stallion documentary, and I just love that. Gotta give credits to her pops. But, you know, because it's true, unfortunately. There are, like, a lot of people who aren't going to be your friend and stuff like that. And so I guess, like, another thing that I would say for people who are trying to build community is, and it's going to sound like, you're like, what? But get used to being alone. You know, don't be so desperate to make friends that you end up tolerating things that you never thought that you would tolerate. You know, because that's also something that I would like to warn about, is because it can definitely take you there. Especially, like, that sense of just wanting to have somebody to hug you or, like, hold you, especially if you're going through something with your family, or you're no contact with your family, you know?
Yeah, it can. Yeah, I totally hear that. So really making sure that we're being conscious of how we're building community.
Yes.
Because we want, having a support system is very important. Honestly, you can't really do this life on your own.
You can't.
You really can't. But when you're trying to build that community, making sure that you're not just trying to rush into it or do anything, because then it might even hurt you.
It might even hurt you even worse than how you were before.
Yes, so that's really important. Another thing that will really help when restarting or getting back into the swing of things is setting realistic goals with what you want to do. Because if, like, going back to the example of, oh, you used to type really fast before you broke your wrist, and now you're back, and now you're saying, oh, on my first day back typing after my wrist heals, I want to type 100 again.
That's not gonna work.
That's not a realistic goal to have. Yes, you might get back to it after, let's say, a week. I mean, I don't know how long it would realistically take, but let's say I'm just throwing out a number here. It would actually take you a week. If you try to set that goal for the first day, it's not just going to work because your body can't just do that. So
Yeah.
setting realistic goal is something that is really important.
Yes. Having like an injury, say for example, an injury or just something going on in which you're not giving your full attention to a matter for a while, and then when you come back to it, you're not going to be as amazing as you were before. Mm-hmm. And setting a realistic goal is also being like having grace towards yourself and understanding, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this, that, and the third. Like, I'm not going to be able to do it. And how about I just start taking like baby steps? You know, it's like trying to run before you even learned how to crawl. You know, you have to be able to start, you know, on your hands and your knees. But
Yeah, that's really important. And the final thing I would say when restarting and when getting back into the swing of things is trying to enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Enjoying the process of getting back. Again, it can be really hard, but really trying to say, oh, like, I'm really enjoying doing X thing. I'm just finding the moments in that thing that bring you joy can make such a huge difference when you're getting back into the swing of things. So
an amazing impact, actually.
It can make a huge impact. So that's something I really want to add, that because that can really elevate your experience in getting back into the swing of things. So yeah. With that, we have come to the end of today's episode. Again, today's episode was basically to make us think about, okay, the connection with rest, recovery, and restarting things we might have stopped, especially in terms of our health. And as with many topics, there are a lot of nuances, and I hope that you know that we're not giving just black and white statements of, oh yeah, do this or do that, because truth is that we're all so different. We're all in different circumstances. There are people who tune in to Blooming Daily from all over the world, so we can't give just one blanket statement and say, oh, everyone should do this, because it's not just possible, and it's not fair to the diversity of our listener base. So we wanted to mention that of course we're saying all these things, but you know your situation best, and you know the place you're in best. You know whether, okay, in this next 2 months, things are going to be X way for you. But then afterwards, okay, you might be able to consider all these things we're saying about self-care or rest and recovery and medical leaves and personal leaves better. You know where you're at, and we want to encourage you to think about it more, rather than have us really say what you should do, what you should not do, and all of those strong statements. We really want to make sure that we're giving you the space to think about your own peculiar situations. So I really wanted to mention that, because that's really important in health and wellness, and in a lot of things in life, honestly. So yes, again, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed joining us today. Please, if you have any questions, concerns, feel free to send them on any of our social media pages, but also feel free to leave a comment on whatever platform you're listening on. Yes, some of the platforms now have comment sections.
Comment.
Leave your comments, drop us emojis, let us know what you thought, how you're feeling, and if there are any topics you really want us to touch in this new season. So thank you again for joining us. Don't forget to share with other people in your lives, your family, friends, your classmates, your co-workers, just everyone you think should be listening to this. And we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.